Pokemon aren't known for complex or even great plot lines. I don't think that is a controversial statement to make, even at the beginning of this video. However, there are little glimmers here and there, and I feel with the right guidance, they could be shaped to make stories that are loved by most fans. What are these glimmers? More importantly, what does that have to do with Pokemon X and Y? Hi y'all, it's Pomé. I'm the passionate pomegranate of cherry on top, and this video marks the start of a series I will do on this channel. As you could tell from the title, it will be named Lights, Camera, Action, Plot. Of course, I will abbreviate it to LCAP from here on, which is fitting because I like to think of it as putting on my literary cap. This series will hopefully explore the first question I posed in the intro. What are the glimmers in Pokemon and other media? Every media has the potential to deliver an effective story. Some do it well, and others, well, the execution isn't solid. As for my second question, Pokemon X and Y to me, and many others, is a game with glimmers, with potential, that misses the mark. In this pilot episode, I'm here to expose them, and to see if, with minor, or even major, changes, it could become a story that would be on par with the best of the series. Namely, Generation 5 and Sun and Moon. Yes, I said Sun and Moon. I said what I said. Now, before we get into it, I can predict the future and read your comments. What qualifies me to be the arbiter of good stories? Well, because I said so. Roll credits. Just kidding. I am someone who loves a good story, and even tries to write stories of my own. As I've been writing for some time, and like many others, I consume and fall in love with many media that has good stories. I've grown to learn how to write to a level where I feel I can make story critiques and fixes like this series will explore. However, as a disclaimer, stories are subjective, and what is a compelling story to me might not be the same to you. These are going to be my thoughts and opinions on what creators of all media, not just Game Freak, can keep in mind when they write their own stories. Another disclaimer, I'm not going to be asking for a complete overhaul of the media's story or anything within my series. In the context of Pokemon, what my changes are would simply be, at most, dialogue changes, and very minimal coding changes. Obviously, part of what makes a video game is coding and other things not related to story, so I can understand if some things are hard to do because the game coding is mostly finalized. Hence why I'll be going into this episode mainly dealing with dialogue and story decisions. It would be like I'm the story advisor at Game Freak, and I'm looking over the dialogue and text to correct its problems, as I feel that's where most of the issues of this plot reside. With that out of the way, let's settle down in the theater and delve into the story of Pokemon X and Y. Lights, camera, action, plot. For the convenience of people who have either not played this game or haven't played in a while, which I cannot relate, I played too many Nuzlocke. I will recap the basic details of the plot that would be important for today's discussion. You, the player, have moved to this new region called Kalos in the small place called Vanderbilt Town. You immediately get acquainted with a group of friends, Serena or Calm depending on your player character, Shauna, Tierno, and Trevor. A bit unrealistic, but okay. And with them, start your Pokemon journey. You soon meet the professor of this region, Professor Sycamore, and his assistants Cinna and Dexio in Lumio City. As you collect your badges, you interact with your friends, the assistants. I mean, it's totally not them. Totally. It's them. I'm sorry, but it's them. And this mysterious evil group called Team Flare, along with its leader, Lysandre, who you didn't know was their leader, despite wearing black and having red hair, just like how Team Flare's color is red, and its cafe being an all-red location with the lab being secretly underneath it, and a Team Flare member is outside the cafe, and Lysandre talks about human selfishness and cleansing the filth of the world. Yeah, Pokemon does try to do shock villains a lot with minimal success. At least Lusamine was a bit more subtle. Not really, but they tried better there. Anyways, shocker, he's a villain and he tries to make points about overpopulation and how people will fight for resources in the future, and makes the Thanos conclusion to wipe off everyone but Team Flare and a select few to rebuild the world, using the energy of the legendaries. I don't know how you could kill people with life energy, but with the name Ultimate Weapon, I'm sure AZ found a way. Speaking of, AZ is a mysterious figure you meet along the way, who, under the shock, was the old king who made the ultimate weapon to avenge a Pokemon he loved. As a result, the Pokemon he revived left him, and he was cursed with immortality due to the exposure of energy, spending all his infinite time wandering the world in search of this Pokemon, which returns to him through minimal effort? Guess he just had to battle someone earlier, I guess. And that's all the important things. Now, comedy aside, on its own, this plot isn't bad. It just suffers from not having the time devoted to the characters, and its theming. Like, there are a lot of major characters in this game, and while they try to develop everyone, it failed in its execution due to giving too little time for everyone. So, how would I fix this game? Well, first, let me explore what the themes of this game are, or what they were trying to go for in the final product. Based on what I laid out in the summary, it seems obvious to me that the theme had to do with selfishness versus selflessness. Lysandre made that clear himself. According to him, humanity will ruin itself due to their selfishness. Because he feels people will not be selfless, he needs to wipe most of them out, including Pokémon. But he falls into the very trap of selfishness that he critiques, and he never learns to be selfless by helping people. Even when he did, in his diary entry talking about it, all he could think about was how the people he was helping wanted more, and instead of listening to the people he was trying to help, he decided to wipe everyone he deemed selfish out. It also plays into AZ's character as well. Because of his selfishness, he revived his beloved Pokemon and cut off many Pokemon and people to do so in his rage. That is what kept Follett away from him for 3,000 years. AZ needed to learn how to let go of his selfishness, his grief and rage, and that was why Follett came back. It also ties into the legendary Pokemon. Now, I joked in the summary section about how can you kill someone with life energy, but I know the energy that Xerneas and Yveltal dealt with is infinite energy, which is based on Pokemon life energy. Xerneas and Yveltal, while being representations of life and death, deal with infinite energy. They have the power to give or take away life. Selfishness versus selflessness in action. And while it's not very present within the friend group, the one scene where they did try to show this was them fighting for the Mega Ring, which I feel didn't show in the final product, but the idea of it is there. So, my changes will focus on tying everything to this central theme. It's already there, so why not make everything fit closer together? Black and White did this quite well, because everything tied to its theme of acceptance and difference of opinions. So it stands to reason, with the right changes, X and Y can follow in its footsteps. I have 4 major sections I would focus on when it comes to this game. The Friends, Lysandre, Sycamore and his assistants, and Miscellaneous. Mainly AZ, but it would also include other aspects not covered in the first 3 sections. I wanted to start with the section I feel is the most important. One where, if the other sections were ignored, would be substantial enough to elevate this game's plot above a good amount of the other Pokemon games. And that is the friend group. I'm sure there are some that think the Lysandre section is the most in need of a revision, but I think the friends fit that better. Revisions to them would greatly benefit the game and tie it to the theme I talked about earlier, even without the rest. Why do I say that? Let's bring up an example. Sun and Moon, the story I said was among the greatest. Sun and Moon's story's biggest strength is the friends and rival characters. Lily in particular is the greatest example of this. Without her, Sun and Moon greatly suffer, which I know upsets some Poketubers to hear, considering they wouldn't shut up about how annoying she was. In fact, Team Skull/Aether Foundation, Team Flare's equivalent, aren't the strongest aspects of this game, especially Team Skull. They are hard carried by Lusamine, and that's due to her connection to Lily as her mother. Sun and Moon's theme was family, both toxic and healthy, and every major character are tied directly to that theme. And without Lily, Hal, and Gladion, or worse if you changed any aspect of them, you would lose that connection and the theme would be muddled because of it. Yes, even if you made Lily less annoying about Nebby. Because the whole point of her caring about Nebby ties into the family motif. Nebby was her child, and because of the lessons she learned when it comes to Nebby, she was able to apply that to her own mother and heal her relationship with her. It's why it is important she is a major character by being your friend, even if she isn't your rival. You connect with the rivals and friends because you interact with them the most in Pokemon games. If they aren't good, the game suffers greatly in my opinion. Hence why I feel the most important change, and also the most substantial one out of the 4 sections, is with the friend group and tying it to the main theme of this game. Now, how would I go about that? My first change is very dramatic actually, and that is getting rid of Tierno. Now, I said in the disclaimer I would try to avoid changes like this that involve coding, but I have a reason to my madness. Sorry Tierno stands, but out of the friend group, Tierno has the least character arc in this game, and doesn't contribute much to the overall plot. When we interact with Serena Callum, Trevor, and Shauna, we don't have an adventure with Tierno. We only battle him twice, and I feel removing one character and giving his time and dialogue space to the others is the only choice I can make here. Like, I could rewrite all the friends' stories, but including the changes in the other sections, it would just be too much. A character or two needed to go, and I think out of everyone, Tierno is the one that fits the bill. So, what about the other 3? I'm going to start with them individually. Shauna is actually the one I would change the least. I think she has a pretty solid arc already, and most of the changes will be in the overall friends story, which I will cover later. I would still have the early game adventure with her, and her arc of wanting to make memories of her journey. She is a pretty unique rival character in this way. Most of the friend rivals usually have standard motivations, and it's nice to see a friend rival with a simple motivation where she just wants to have fun and make memories. Next is Trevor. I would keep that he is the first trainer to start out of your group, as well as him giving you and the rest of the starters, and keep his main motivation being the Pokédex. However, I would make him older to fit the starting his journey early narrative work, and I would change it to where he is the one who shows us most of the tutorials. I would also change his personality. While I love meek Trevor, I would make him more confident and forward. He would have pride in being the experienced trainer among the 4 of you. Humble, but when challenged, succumbing to this pride. And while he wouldn't be the main rival, I would make him more of a rival than Shauna, even without a traditional starter Pokemon. While he would be focused on the Pokédex and wanting to beat you there, he would still battle you in the traditional way like he does in-game. And finally, Serena Callum. This might be the hardest one to change because they are meant to be more blank slatey, because they are the ones who change depending on the player. But I feel even in other games, these type of rivals do have a character, even if it is minimal. I would heavily lean to their backstory of being the child of veteran trainers. They would be arrogant, trying to outdo Trevor in their knowledge and overtake his lessons. They would let you know right away that they want to be the best Pokemon trainer and follow in the family's footsteps. They would also be the most threatened by you doing well, including willing to forego their friendship with you. They would have their arrogance tested against the likes of Team Flare, and go through a journey of self-discovery because of you. They would be the most changed from their story arc within the game. Now, story-wise, things would be drastically different. They would still be good people and befriend you right away, but there would be obvious tension. After all, they barely know you, and the other 3 would clearly be closer than they would be with you. After you get your first badge and defeat Professor Sycamore easily, something that even Trevor struggles with, they would distance from you because you are a stranger to them. You challenged everything they believe about themselves, and so Trevor and Serena Callum would be annoyed with you. Shauna less so, but she would unfortunately succumb to the other 2's peer pressure and ignore you. Then Shauna and you go to the castle subplot. It is through there she learns to trust you and like you. She even mentions that you are different from what the other 2 painted you to be. Right after, you team up with Shauna and face Trevor and Serena Callum. And Serena Callum begrudgingly accepts your win, and you could tell they are slightly upset as they leave with Trevor. Shauna leaves to follow them, telling you that Serena Callum take losing seriously, and not to mind their attitude. I would keep everything until Reflection Cave the same, even the niceness, because I feel Serena Callum would try to pretend everything is fine at this point. But change Tierno's interaction with you in the cave to Serena Callum, where they wonder where you came from and how a racer's child could compete with someone like them, ending the conversation with, well, there can only be one champion from Vanderbilt. Trevor and Shauna meet you in Chalor City, where the tension is slightly obvious. Shauna tries her best to lighten the air, but Trevor feels tense as he compares your Pokédex, and tells you about the city and to meet them in the Tower of Mastery. On the way, instead of someone giving you the intriguing stone, you find it yourself, and when Gherkin asks you about it, you have an option to say that Trevor or Shauna gave it to you. If you pick Trevor, he is shocked, but says that it isn't true. Shauna will be similar, but she will be good-natured about it. And Gherkin says while you weren't honest, the way you tried to make your friend special intrigues him. Then Serena Cow will meet you outside the room as like the original game. Gherkin mentions there is only one Mega Ring, and unlike the final game, the others, mainly Serena Cow, try their best to make a case for them to have the ring. Gherkin decides you and Serena Cow should battle for the chance, so they battle you, but instead of being accepting of you winning the battle, and hence winning the Mega Ring, Serena Cow snaps at you, yelling that you aren't their friend for ruining their chance to be the best Pokemon trainer by getting this Mega Ring, that you were some stranger they took pity on and only invited you to the group because of Professor Sycamore. Trevor, while dismissing their attitude and congratulates you for getting the Mega Ring, doesn't deny their words and goes off to find Serena Cow. Shauna follows them, telling the player that the rival is just a sore loser sometimes, and that they didn't mean their words. They really are friends, and while it might be true that you were a stranger to them, they grew to be close. At least she is close to you. But after she leaves, Gherkin notes how it doesn't feel like they are a true friend to you, and comments that might be why Serena Cow and Trevor might not be ready to have the Mega Ring. Before you go to challenge Karina on the top of the tower, Gherkin brings up your friends again and asks if you still wish to be friends with people who treat you this way. If you choose yes, he will commend you for your strength and wish you luck. If you select I'm not sure, he will tell you that it's okay to doubt yourself in the face of adversity. Either option you choose, he will end it with it's okay to cut people out of your life and find people who like keeping you around like Shauna does. Before I continue, I know what you guys think already. Wow, Pomé, you're such a great writer, and I think the changes you made are cool. But Pokemon is a kid's game. There is no way they would include this. Even Blue, Silver, and other rivals like them weren't this mean to the player, much less a rival that is meant to be your friend. And you're right, they weren't. Maybe Silver, but he never pretended to be your friend. But just because Pokemon has never done this type of storyline doesn't mean they never would. And with the kids game argument, I take issue with that. 1, there are a lot of kids media that cover intense topics, some darker than this even. And 2, I think a lot of people tend to dismiss kids media as simple, and that some storylines would go over a kid's head. I disagree, and in fact, I think a lot of kids would understand this, as I feel a lot more kids understand the feeling of being unwanted than you think. I'm also sure they have experienced a friendship like this in the real world. I think this storyline is needed for kids, especially because the initial storyline X and Y has is unrealistic. Very rarely are you instantly friends with someone, and I can speak to this personally when I was younger. Sometimes you don't feel like you belong in a group of friends. And they treat you like you're just there, and if you did something to challenge them, they would drop you instantly. I think the storyline would teach kids this is normal, and how to confront this problem and even make them contemplate who to keep in their lives. It's something even adults struggle with. Now, spoiler alert, the player doesn't drop anyone in the friend group, because you are right, it is a kids media and friendship is magic. But also getting rid of a rival character is unheard of, and I doubt a Pokemon game would do that. But there would be adults in that situation, like Gherkin, who present that option to the player, and they can make new friends, and it's all up to them to decide when to cut someone off. And I think just that alone is enough. Anyways, back to the rival storyline. After this, there isn't that many changes. Like in most, the encounters would be the same, but Trevor's and Serena Cow's dialogue would be more bitter and confrontational, especially in Route 14. I would change it where Trevor wants to battle you after checking the Pokédex, but Shauna interrupts it by arriving and telling you all to cool down. Trevor would question which side Shauna was on, and Shauna would deflect the question by asking them to go to the haunted house. Like in-game, Serena Cow wouldn't come with, causing Shauna to be upset. She would confide in you once Trevor leaves to go to the house, where she says that all she wanted was to make memories on this trip, but those two make it difficult. She wouldn't blame you and wonder out loud how soon things would be made up. Then things would stay the same for the Pokeball Factory part of the game, and you think Serena Cow is your friend again, only to have them leave quickly after telling the others not to come into the factory. Then, when you have the Trevor subplot in Frost Cavern, Trevor starts warming up to you after you help him defeat Team Flare, realizing how he has messed up his friendship with you, stating, "I haven't been a good mentor, huh?" After you make up, Trevor and Shauna are now friendly with you. In Anistar, Serena Cow mentioned Trevor talking to them about you and wondering what you did to make their friends go behind them like that. Then, when they arrive to help you with Team Flare, they start to realize their problems with you are less important than the Doomsday device right in front of them, especially after Lysandre's dialogue with you two and Shauna showing up. And Trevor, honestly, I don't know why it's just her in the real game. Trevor says he is going to help the heroes, and Shauna, you, and Serena Calm help make it to the main chamber. I will talk about the rest of that encounter when I get to Lysander's section, but suffice to say that this mission makes Serena Calm realize how badly they treated you. So, when the bridge scene happens, all of them meet you there. And yes, I mean all of them, because why isn't the rival there? Like, I get it, they're trying to get a Mega Ring, but come on now. And Shauna implores Serena Calm to apologize since they didn't get to do so during the hecticness of saving the world. Serena Calm realized that, although the group's intentions when they added you to their friend group were insincere, through this journey they realized it was them alone who was at fault, not you. And of course, you forgive them. And although you battle Trevor and Shauna one last time, which Trevor takes his loss well, noting he mentored you well, Serena Calm declined to do so, saying they need more time, especially as they wish to better themselves and hopefully attain the Mega Ring. Which they do, and in Victory Road they battle you one final time. They marvel that, even with everything, you decided to remain their friend, and they will not take the decision for granted and wish you luck in becoming the champion from Vanderbilt Town. When you respond in a confused way, they reassure you that they know you will become champion, and they hope one day they might beat you to become the new champion from Vanderbilt. And with that, the ending scene with them is the same as well. Now, isn't that a lot better? Not only is it more compelling and endears you to the friend group, it also will tie into Lysander's goals and theming with Team Flare, which I'll explore in that section. Even if someone took this and dialed it down a bit, obviously it does get a bit intense, this still would be a much better storyline than what we got in the games, especially as it parallels the selfishness versus selflessness subplot that we're trying to go for. Speaking of Team Flare, let's get into them next, and by Team Flare I mean Lysandre. The Team Flare encounters and the rest of the evil group are fine, and honestly, I'm okay with the scientists as is. It's mainly Lysandre that I have issues with. My first issue is that Lysandre is kind of a bit obvious, especially in the early game. I would tone down his dialogue in the first half of the game. Make the red flags there, obviously, like how he wants things to stay as they are, for beauty to remain, to cleanse the filth. I think his dialogue in the Red Cafe with you in Sycamore is honestly perfect. It seems normal, but you're on edge. Something is wrong, but you don't know what. Especially as Sycamore doesn't feel that worried about what he said. I would keep the same feel with the other early dialogues as well, but we'll get into Sycamore, don't you worry. Now, I like that the reason he knows about infinite energy and the ultimate weapon is because he is descended from AZ's brother. His royal ancestry plays out in multiple ways. He has knowledge of the ultimate weapon because his descendant told his children, and as someone with royal blood, he feels like he needs to be a leader, a king, and lead Kalos to prosperity by himself. It also ties him into AZ, another character dealing with his selfishness versus selflessness theming. And I do like how, later in the game when you choose the correct button, they still unleash it anyways. I love Lysandre's dialogue about unfairness, but still going through with it, showing off his hypocrisy. What I would change with Lysandre's dialogue between you and Serena Calm is make it relate more to the journey I outlined earlier. Something like, you fought for the Mega Ring, isn't that right? Yeah, but not only that, but you have fought with your so-called friend for your whole journey so far. How did you know about that? You really think, when we were peeking into everyone's conversations on Holocasters, that we did not peek into yours? Human beings are selfish, even toward their own friends. You demand more and more, and when you don't get what you want, you lash out. And that is why only Team Flare must survive, and cleanse the world of the filth that is human selfishness. My main problem in the original game is how loosely your personal story with the rivals connects with Lysandre's humans are selfish motivation in these games. Other than the Mega Ring, which I would not call a selfish exchange in the original games, there is nothing that can be used against the player, or even Serena Calm. But with my changes to the rival story, there it is. Serena Calm in my version is selfish, and with Lysandre's words and Shauna soon after, they start to realize their own selfishness and work past it. So much so that when Lysandre returns to battle the player and after he loses, Serena Calm brings those words back. You said human beings are selfish, and you're right, Trevor, mostly me honestly. I have been selfish towards insert player name here. And because of that, I have caused conflict with my other friends, especially Shauna. But if we work together, we can overcome our selfishness. You did it now by making me realize what I have done. And Shauna, like how it is in-game, brings up his connection to his Pokémon and how that is a counterpoint to his worldview, and it causes Lysandre to lash out, becoming the very thing he critiqued this whole game. He has become his own filth and, in his selfishness, refuses our help and only wants to take. With that, he activates the energy like he did in the original version, either commenting how you will die or live forever, and the machine is destroyed. However, to parallel with AZ becoming immortal, I would make it so Lysandre lives and becomes immortal himself, or at least will live longer than most because he was exposed to some infinite energy. By becoming immortal, it would further connect him to AZ besides his royal bloodline. And at the end of the game, you see Lysandre in the cutscenes looking on to the celebration and your battle with AZ, further cementing the parallel. While AZ let go of his selfishness, Lysandre never did. So far, I feel like with these changes alone, it would be a pretty great story, no? The first two sections I feel are more necessary and cannot be cut. So, for the other two sections, I would consider these more optional changes, and they are the ones I feel least invested in personally speaking. Either for time reasons, or I feel the original games does it decently well. We'll start with Sycamore and Santalune first, since I feel the changes there are more necessary than my AZ and other character changes. I'm going to start with the easiest and less substantial part of this section, and that is with Santalune. At most, I would just change it where they tell you they are the heroes when you first see them in their attire. Like, there's no point of the mystery, and I feel it's completely unnecessary. They would tell the player they are Santalune and that they don this disguise more so to hide their identities from Team Flare, and that if you wish to take on Team Flare to be careful, and that while the adults should be the ones to handle it, they know you, as a curious kid, will do so anyways. You could even have one of the rivals comment that it feels like they don the costume more for fun than to protect their identity. It would be a neat way to tie in a type of selfishness that is mostly harmless, especially as they are selfless in being heroes when they don't need to be. Now on to Sycamore. I feel most of what he does in-game is fine. I would just wish to emphasize his relationship with Lysandre a bit more. And not because I ship them or anything. Although, you must admit there is some tension there. But regardless, in Sycamore's last dialogue, I would mention it more, like, "For years I have known him, and while I wanted him to put his ego and his own selfishness aside to lead Kalos to greater heights, he was always too passionate to dim himself for others. I should have reined him in more and saw the signs before it was too late. It seems I was too blinded by his flame to notice. It is partly my fault for being selfish when it came to him." Tying into his discussion with you and Lysandre, his lack of inaction stands apparent, especially as while we feel unnerved by the discussion, Sycamore only was like, "That was just one way of seeing things," instead of realizing he was indulging in a man who was about to kill off most of the world. He was blinded, and him pointing it out would be a good thing to include. And, of course, how it ties into Sycamore's own selfishness in wanting to be his friend. Because of his selfishness, he wasn't able to stop another's before it was too late. Now, onto the last section, which mainly covers AZ. Before I do that, I would like to cover the gym leaders. I wish more of them helped, to further the theme of selfishness versus selflessness via helping others out. I like the idea of Shauna using Clement's device to help save the world, but I would add Clement giving that device to Shauna when you two first meet him and Bonnie outside the gym. I would include little moments like that with all the gym leaders, like how it's done with Karina when she helps you achieve Mega Evolution. Maybe Violet tells you about her sister waiting nearby that gives you the EXP share. Maybe Valerie is the first to warn you that there are shady dealings around the factory that she was meaning to check out. Maybe Olympia's haiku is more helpful and spells out who Lysandre truly is besides vaguely predicting your encounter with a legendary. It could also be the other way around, like how you help return Wulfric to the gym. I think having these moments of helping or getting helped by the gym leaders would further reinforce the theme they wanted to convey in these games. Now onto AZ. I don't mind him being a more mysterious figure. In fact, I like that about his characterization. I mainly wish his resolution ended a different way. Like, first of all, Lysandre hears the same story you do and sees he has the ultimate weapon key and doesn't think, maybe he's the king? Like, he knows he has the same name, but he doesn't connect the dots there? He could have realized AZ became immortal and wonders if he activates it, will he be the same? And when he leaves, I like that AZ warns us about stopping the machine before you, and possibly Lysandre, know true unending pain like I have. A part of me wishes he told that to Lysandre himself, even having Lysandre dismiss him. especially if he thinks he's not the king, like maybe think the man in front of him has lost himself in his fantasy. But the most important thing I would change is the framing in which he wins back Floette. He didn't do much in the original game besides tell us the story and battle us. We should have freed him back in the lab, and he could ponder whether to do the right thing. Then he could tell the player in his encounter with us after the machine is destroyed that he was able to warn people and Pokémon and move them away from the area, using his previous selfishness, the knowledge that made the ultimate weapon, and turning it into a selfless action by saving others. And then, the in-game dialogue where he retells the story again and wonders how he can meet Floette makes sense then. Even after what he did, he still wonders what he could do to meet his beloved Pokémon again. If doing that didn't make Floette return, what then? But it's flawed thinking. Even though he did a selfless action, he is still thinking in a selfish manner, only thinking about Floette. Then, when he comes to the ceremony asking us to battle, we can further expand on it. Along with the dialogue present after the battle, I would add, "Because of you, you freed me. Whatever happens now, whether I meet the Pokémon or not, that sorrow and rage I felt when I built that weapon is long gone. I'm sure the Pokémon would be happy to know I am free from the selfishness of my past self." Which would cue its appearance. It wasn't about whether he did good or bad things after. That wasn't why Floette didn't return for so long. It was the fact that he didn't change. He was still the same man as before. He was still doing things for selfish reasons. Even if he did a selfless action, he was only thinking of himself, which made the action selfish. Not only that, but he still held on to the grief and rage that caused him to make the ultimate weapon, his main selfishness. He needed to let that go to meet Floette. He only reunited with Floette once he learned that, in order to be truly selfless, he needed to do something without pondering how he would benefit from it. It's still present within the actual version of the game, but I think making that clearer would lead people to understand the ending better and have it resonate more. In conclusion, I don't think X and Y are the worst games when it comes to story, and I am telling the truth when I say there is potential here. If they refine the rivals more, maybe cutting one of them even, and connecting it better to Lysandre and his motivations with Team Flare, I feel this could have easily been one of the better stories in Pokémon. It doesn't even need to be from my ideas or notes. If they just incorporated more when it came to the friend group and were willing to minimize or cut characters out, the potential would have been executed far better. But let me know what you think in the comments below. I would love to hear your thoughts on my potential X and Y story, or if you have your own ideas on what could have made it better. I really enjoy discussions about stories and themes, as you can tell by how long this video is. So I could talk about X and Y, or really any story for hours really. But I had to rein myself in. I hope you enjoyed my pilot episode of LCAP, and I would love to make more of this, not even with just Pokemon games. In fact, I have more episode ideas that don't involve Pokemon stories, and even another one that does, and I'm excited to share them with you all. I also would appreciate your ideas about stories that you feel might be improved, and I might be willing to cover them. This has been Pomé, and I hope this has been refreshing for your tongue and your mind. Enjoy your Sunday!